All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to break down the essential AWS toolkit for what's called responsible AI. Now, if you're prepping for the AI Practitioner exam, listen up, because this is absolutely mission critical. But you know what? Even if you're not, these concepts are vital for anyone who's serious about building AI on AWS that you can actually trust. So, let's do this.
Yeah, I love this quote. It hits the nail on the head, right? Building a powerful AI, that's just table stakes these days. The real trick, the whole game, is building one that's trustworthy. It's got to be fair, it's got to be transparent, it has to be safe. And that, right there, is the real challenge. The good news is, the tools we're about to walk through, they're basically your arsenal for winning this fight.
So here's our game plan. We're going to take a tour of your responsible AI toolkit. First up, we'll talk about detecting bias and explaining what our models are doing. Then, we'll get into labeling data with precision. After that, we'll cover how to document and monitor the models. We'll see how to integrate human review, and finally, we'll wrap up with blocking harmful content. It really covers the whole shebang.
Okay, so first things first, I want you to think about this as your command center for building good AI. This is not just a random list of 6 services. Nope, think of it as a totally integrated toolkit. Each piece has a very specific job, sure, but they all work together to create this safety net that stretches across the whole AI development process. It's pretty cool. All right, let's kick things off with our first tool. This one is all about cracking open that infamous black box of AI, right? We need to see what's going on inside. It's all about spotting and stamping out fairness issues before they can do any damage out in the real world. And for that, we have Amazon SageMaker Clarify.
So what exactly is SageMaker Clarify? Well, here's what makes it so powerful. It attacks 2 of the biggest headaches in AI at the same time: hidden bias and the fact that we often don't know why a model does what it does. So it doesn't just flag a problem and walk away. No, it actually helps you understand the why behind your model's predictions. And that's a huge deal.
Okay, if you're studying for the exam, this is a big one. You absolutely have to remember that Clarify does its job in 2 places. First, it looks at your data before you train anything. It's like a pre-flight check for bias. And then, after you've built your model, it checks the model's actual behavior for any bias that might have crept in. That before and after capability, that's its superpower for sure.
This leads us perfectly into our next section. I mean, you can have the best bias detection in the world, but if you're building on a shaky foundation of flawed data, well, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the big question is, how do we make sure our data is top-notch right from the very start?
And the answer is Amazon's SageMaker Ground Truth. The best way to think about this is like it's your quality control team for the raw ingredients of your AI. It's a service that helps you create these super accurate, beautifully labeled data sets. And that's the bedrock, right? It's the foundation for everything that comes after. If you nail this part, your life gets so much easier down the line.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got clean data thanks to Ground Truth. We've got a way to check for bias and explain things with Clarify. What's next? Well, now we got to govern the model itself. And this is really a tale of 2 parts: what you do before you deploy and what you do after.
I really like how this is laid out so clearly. On one side, you've got model cards. That's your before. It's all about being transparent before you go live. And on the other side, you have model monitor. That's your after. It's all about being vigilant once your model is out in the wild. They're 2 sides of the same very important coin.
So let's talk about model cards first. The nutrition label analogy is perfect. Seriously. It's a simple document that spells everything out. What's this model supposed to do? How well does it perform? And, just as important, what are its limits? It's all about putting everything on the table before anyone starts using it.
And then, on the flip side, you have Model Monitor. This is your active guardian, your early warning system once the model's deployed. It's on duty 24/7, watching for things like data drift. Now what's that? It's basically when the real-world data starts to look different from the training data, which can cause big problems. Model Monitor catches that, and it'll sound the alarm if performance starts to drop or if new biases start showing up. Okay, but what happens when your model is out there doing its thing and it comes across something tricky? You know, a case where it's just not very confident in its answer. You can't just have it take a wild guess, especially if the stakes are high. You need to phone a friend, right? You need a human in the loop. And that is exactly what Amazon Augmented AI, or A2I, is for. So what is A2I? It's basically a service that lets you build these human review workflows super easily. You set the rules. You say, hey, if the model's confidence drops below, say, 90%, I don't want it to decide. And what happens? A2I automatically sends that specific case over to a real person to make the final judgment. It is an absolutely critical safety net. And this process here is just so elegant in its simplicity. Step 1, the model isn't sure, so it raises a flag. Step 2, A2I zaps that problem over to a human. Step 3, the human looks at it and gives the correct answer. But here's the kicker, the best part. You're not just solving one little problem. That human's answer becomes brand new, high-quality training data. So you're constantly feeding the system and making it smarter. It's a virtuous cycle.
All right, we're on to our last tool in the kit. And this one tackles a challenge that is, let's be honest, all over the news right now. I'm talking about generative AI. How do we make sure that our chatbots, our content creators, all these amazing new tools actually behave themselves when they're interacting with real people? The tool for this is called Amazon Bedrock Guardrails. The easiest way to picture it is as a customizable safety filter, or maybe even like a bouncer for your AI. You get to write the rules. You define what's okay and what's not okay. Your own responsible AI policies. And Guardrails stands at the door and makes sure the AI never crosses those lines.
And you have a ton of control here. You can tell it to block entire topics you don't want it discussing. You can have it filter out bad language or automatically remove sensitive stuff like personal info. It even helps protect you from things like prompt injection. That's a sneaky trick where a user tries to get the AI to forget its rules and do something malicious. Guardrails helps shut that down.
Phew, okay. That was a lot, I know. So let's take a breath and pull it all together. This next bit is basically your study guide, your cheat sheet for seeing how all these different tools connect to form one cohesive strategy.
And here it is. You can see it all laid out by the machine learning lifecycle stage. Right at the beginning, in data prep and training, you have ground truth and clarify doing the heavy lifting. Then, right before deployment, you create your model card. Once you go live, that's when Model Monitor and A2I kick in to keep an eye on things. And of course, for your Gen AI apps, Guardrails is that always-on safety layer. Really internalizing this flow? That's going to be huge. So I want to leave you with this final thought. It's a bit bigger than just the exam, but it's really what this is all about. As these AI models get more and more autonomous, where do we draw the line? Where does automated monitoring stop and essential human oversight begin? The tools we talked about today, they give us amazing power and control. But that last piece, the wisdom to know when a human needs to step in, well, that part's always going to be up to us. Thanks for listening, and good luck.